take it away.
Great. Well, thank you, Teddy. Good morning and welcome to today's Coffee and Commerce Legislative Preview, and it's sponsored by Libkey Insurance. Thank you to our members and community partners for joining us, and a sincere thank you to our legislators here for taking the time to be here and sharing their insights. Coffee and Commerce is a chamber program designed to create meaningful dialogue between local businesses and our decision makers on issues that directly affect our regional economy. And today's conversation will focus on what the upcoming legislative session may hold for our business community. I'm pleased to have Teddy Garcia, Chamber Business and Community Relations Coordinator, facilitate the discussion. He's going to guide our questions to ensure a thoughtful and informative exchange. Teddy, take it away for us.
Thank you, Steve. As he mentioned, I'm the Business and Community Relations Coordinator here at the Chamber of Commerce. It looks like we lost Senator Short there, but welcome Tom Dent, Representative. We are just getting started here, and thank you so much for joining us, representatives and senators. So I want to start with a brief introduction of each of our legislators here. We'll start with Senator Gaynor, if you don't mind just introducing who you are and what committees you also serve on in the legislature.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Keith Gaynor, serving in the Senate for the 12th District. And just to remind everyone, the 12th District does include almost all of Chelan County and then parts of King and Snohomish. So we have quite a broad area that we're representing. But the committees I'm on, I'm serving as assistant ranking on the transportation, the ranking on housing, and then I'm also on the local government committee.
Representative Burnett, if you don't mind going next.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Also serving for the 12th District in the House. My committees are I'm assistant ranking for early learning and human services, community safety, civil rights, judiciary, and appropriations.
Representative Ibarra.
My name's Alex Ibarra. I'm the state representative for District 13. District 13 has a little bit of Adams County, has most of Grant County, has all of Kittitas County, and we go from Quincy to East Wenatchee, so up to Pangbourne Field. And I
Rep
sit on the Labor and Workplace Standards Committee. I'm the ranking member on that committee. I'm on post-secondary education and workforce, which I'm a ranking member on, and I also sit on Environment and Energy Committee.
and then Representative Dent.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Representative Tom Dent, representing the 13th Legislative District. And I serve on the Transportation Committee, Human Services and Early Learning Committee, and I'm the ranking member on the Ag and Natural Resources Committee. And I'm also the chairman of the Aviation Caucus and the co-chair of the Wildfire Caucus.
Well, thank you so much for all of you joining us here this morning. We have some set questions, but of course, to everyone in attendance, we have our Q&A feature. If you don't mind just throwing questions over there, hopefully we'll get them answered here. There is a portion at the end that we will also have time for those questions. We're going to start with our Senator Gaynor. Do you foresee any efforts this session to streamline or simplify local permitting and regulatory processes that small businesses regularly navigate?
Well, thank you. I will say that I do see that there will be efforts. How successful those efforts will be is a whole nother topic. But what we've been working on, and the whole time I've been in the legislature, 7 years, is trying to help with that streamlining concept with local government and primarily, and then also with the housing. So we haven't really made a lot of strides, but there is discussion. There's a lot of talk about around the housing sector, and that's making modifications with some of the zoning to allow for more flexibility, which is something that I've certainly supported. From other standpoints, from the environmental type regulation, that is not really doesn't get a whole lot of traction. But I do think that that is something that we need to look at, and primarily the Growth Management Act. We've got to be more serious about what that is doing in impeding development, and also providing what it does is it adds more burdens to the local governments in compliance issues. So there should be a lot of conversation, but obviously this session is not going to be a long one, so there won't be a lot of opportunity to make significant changes.
Thank you. And we had both Senator Warnick and Senator Short come back. Welcome to you both.
Sorry
If you
about
don't,
that.
totally understand. You're running on generator power over
Yeah.
there. If you don't mind, Senator Warnick, can you give a little introduction in who you are and what committees that you sit on in the legislature?
Sure. Senator Judy Warnick, 13th District, which includes a small part of Douglas County now. Mostly Grant or all of Grant, all of Kittitas, and a small amount of Adams County as well. But I'm glad to be representing the area where you folks are coming from. I am the caucus chair for the smallest caucus in the legislature. We keep trying to change that, but there's 19 members in the Senate Republican caucus. And I am on the Ways and Means Committee, the Human Services Committee, which we deal with public safety, with human services as far as DCYF, so children's issues. And then I'm also on the Higher Ed and Workforce Development Committee. So glad to be here today.
Thank you. And Senator Short.
Well, appreciate being here and your patience as we work through weather issues. I'm Shelley Short. I'm the state senator for the 7th Legislative District, which includes most of Douglas County and a little bit of the northern part of Chelan County. And the rest of it is northeastern Washington. It's the largest geographic district. So I am the Senate Republican floor leader for our caucus. So my job takes in, talking with the majority leader and the majority, just the floor leader when it comes to things, action on the floor. I'm the ranking member on the Ag and Natural Resources Committee. I serve on the Energy, Environment, and Technology Committee. And then I also sit on Rules, which is a committee where you bring bills to the floor for consideration. But I really appreciate being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. We just had a question for Senator Gaynor. We're going to move on. Senator Short, for our agriculture-dependent economy here, especially in North and Central Washington, do you see any policy discussions or anticipate any around water, land use, and natural resources that could impact farmers and ag-related businesses?
Sure, great question. I think, I figured after the Hearst decision and all of the issues surrounding that, that there would be more water policy, and it's been pretty quiet. And I think this session is going to continue to be pretty quiet. We obviously want to make sure when water policy is looked at that there's longstanding water rights, especially in our district and in your communities. And so that's something I pay great attention to. I think one of the things that we want to do is really the impact, the viability of agriculture. So I think what you're going to see are policies that are brought forth to do our part to say, how can we help deal with these? Obviously, you've got questions for other members I won't go into, but one specifically I wanted to highlight. Senator Mazzal is running a bill, he started it last year, which essentially tells the agencies to better understand the impacts to agriculture and to mitigate it. So if there are impacts to agriculture, they've got to do their important rules and their work with minimal impact to agriculture. Across our state and actually the nation, there are similar laws with respect to small business and the impacts on small business. So I know he's going to be pushing that. We have other bills that are going to be designed. I've got one on water quality, not quantity, but water quality that would get rid of the potential to pollute. Think if you're agricultural owners, just have your property. Ecology isn't necessarily an agency you want to deal with, and they have tremendous power. And I think they take latitude over property in ways they shouldn't. I mean, of course, we want really good water quality. That's not an issue. It's how they do it. I don't know if I'll get a hearing on that, but I've seen a lot of impacts in my district, including your communities. And so one we're going to be opposed to is the environmental crimes bill coming back. That's Senator Trudeau's. It won't go to committee. It'll actually come back to the floor because it actually passed the Senate. And I think, again, gives tremendously broad, far-reaching authority to ecology in a way that will impact agricultural owners.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
And then to Senator Warnick, what opportunities do you see for strengthening education to career pipelines, especially for industries facing persistent staffing shortages?
That's also a very good question, Teddy. I think the prime opportunities in our district are our community colleges. And any trade opportunities. We have a couple of good trade schools in Eastern Washington, but the community colleges, I see both Wenatchee Valley and Columbia Basin College, or Big Bend Big Bend College. It's too early in the morning. I've been running. Is in Moses Lake, and working with industry is key. So if we have a need, whether it's healthcare or specific industries, we need the industrial folks to reach out to the colleges and say, here's what we need in the way of employees. And there are more and more opportunities to do that. We have in the past been able to get tax breaks for equipment to train these employees on. Because the community colleges don't always have the bandwidth to buy the up-to-date equipment, whether it's healthcare or specific technology. But so I think, we need to encourage more collaboration. Also in the university levels. I was able to tour UW a few weeks ago and the engineering program. It is fantastic what the students are learning in engineering. And I just hope that we can continue to work together with the industry. The one thing I'm seeing, however, I'm fairly new to the higher ed committee. Last year was my first year on the committee, so I'm still learning some of the jargon. But what I've seen is drastic cuts or taking away the ability for students to use and access the Washington College Grant Program. If they attend a non-public school, a private school, and we don't, that I know of, have any in District 13, but there are private schools, private universities that the students no longer qualify to use their college grant. So I want to see that changed, to get back to opening it up for students that want to attend a for-profit, if you will. The other is the federal cuts. And I know Wenatchee, Big Bend, other Eastern Washington schools have a high percentage of minority students. And to see the cuts or perceived cuts for minority students is very, very concerning for me. So working on trying to get that back, trying to look at the benefits that these students will have for our economy if they can get a good education. So got a lot of challenges with higher ed, we just need to encourage more students to attend universities. The numbers are going down, unfortunately. So encourage more attendance and encourage the employers to work with the universities and community colleges. So a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Senator Warnick. And I can agree that trades and apprenticeships are a huge part of keeping our industries going and our daily lives. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Switching over to our House of Representatives, Representative Ibarra, energy is a constant topic and a need for our growing demand. What adjustments and changes do you see in the upcoming session to energy production or investment to our region?
Well, thanks for the question. And as we all know, especially Senator Short, who's out of power at the moment, um, energy is very, very important. It's one of the most important things we have, and almost important as water. Right now, I mean, we're very lucky to live. We have Grant PUD, Chelan Douglas, Chelan and Douglas PUDs who have Wells Dam, Rock Island Dam, Rocky Reach, Wanapum, and Priest Rapids, and we have the three cheapest electric rates in the country. So we're very lucky to live where we live. Our forefathers made great decisions in order to bring those dams to us, and we run them efficiently, where fish come first on those dams. Um, but as we all know, the state legislature, the other side of the aisle, has passed the cap and trade bill. They've passed the CETA bill, which basically is taking away fossil fuels. And so what that means to us is we're inheriting a less reliable system, electric system, because of those changes. We can't rely on wind and solar all the time. I mean, look at now, I have no wind and I have no sun at the moment. So where's electricity come from? It comes from the hydro dams. Problem is as the bills and laws have changed, what needs to happen is we need to come up with new energy sources. The only energy sources that we have at the moment is going to be small nuclear reactors and also hydrogen. The great thing about our area is we're working on a hydrogen plant. There was one that was opened just recently outside of Wenatchee, from Douglas, and so that's opened up. So that hopefully that goes in the right direction. And I'm hoping other PUDs do the same thing, so we can start generating more hydrogen for the future. But the future means 15 years. In the meantime, because of the changes that were made through legislation, we are out of transmission, the capacity of transmission. And people will say it's because the data centers came in, took all the energy. I beg to differ. All the new houses that came in, all the new businesses that came in, there's three new plants in Moses Lake that need 280 megawatts of electricity. They came in, they're not data centers. All the new homes that are coming to Wenatchee and Quincy, and across central Washington, they all need energy. And because of the laws that were passed, we don't have the energy to give them anymore. And we can't do anything about it because of those laws. So now we're stuck. Now we're in a reliability crisis. Hopefully we, in the near future, don't get a really big cold spill or a hot spill, because if we do, we're right at that brink where we will lose power. We'll go to blackout and brownout. And again, Senator Short knows what a blackout is. She's lucky to have a generator in her home. Unfortunately, that generator probably uses diesel or gasoline, which is the most likely outlaw because they're not that thinking ahead for people. They'll probably make everybody use batteries in the future, which makes no sense. But when we get to blackout and brownout, they'll find out what they did. And we don't want to get there, but we're trying to do everything we can to get more energy supplies into the region so we do not go to blackout and brownout. But we're darn close to getting there. And it's because of the legislature that has been passed in the state of Washington. A lot more to say about it, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I do see that there is a pre-filed bill to add nuclear into the state's energy plan. So there's definitely that conversation, I think, going on and making sure that we have power and moving into the future. Representative Burnett, community safety has become an everyday business issue, from retail theft to employee safety. Are there public safety or civil justice bills you anticipate that could affect local employers or commercial areas?
Yeah, I mean, well, let me, I'll address that and also talk a little bit what we saw during committee days here a couple weeks ago in the presentations on some national crime rates and what Washington State's looking like. We did see some bills run last year that we were able to detour that I don't believe is good for public safety, and they're trying to take away some I call low-level enforcement for traffic, civil and traffic infractions, and making it not an enforceable priority stop to be able to stop vehicles for certain things. And why I say that's important is because traffic safety and the ability to be able to stop vehicles and run warrant checks and it's a crime deterrent on a lower level that also leads to crime investigations and solving upper level crimes, more violent crimes and property thefts, which we know generate increased costs to our retail stores and different things like that. They were showing that the national crime rate was down since 2019, but Washington State is down, but it has not returned to being down from 2019. And I personally question some of the national stats or even in Washington State. And here's the reason why. I think people are less likely to report specific crimes because they are frustrated in nature on the low level crimes. So yes, maybe the reported crime rate is down, but are all unreported crime rates. And those are the things that we don't know about. And we hear about people, larger agencies don't have the staffing. So if it's a misdemeanor crime, you have to go online and enter the information yourself, which deters people to say that I'm just not going to waste my time to do that. We're also seeing businesses forced to pay for their own private security. We know that increased enforcement, proactivity, and just the presence of officers detour crime in itself. And that was one of the presentations they showed that Washington State is the last in the nation for officers per capita, and we're trying to get that increased because presence in itself is a crime deterrent. And so if we can invest up in front of that, the problem with that is I think there was some stats that showed from 2022, public safety cost for local agents, municipalities, cities, and counties are up 35%. So it's really, really difficult for our cities and counties to bring on officers on their own because of our increased cost of living here in Washington State, fuel prices, all of that. Another disturbing one was the unsolved violent crimes. Just since 2022, we have 49,000 unsolved violent crimes in the state of Washington. And and here's the deal. Uh, it's not just about being safe, it's about people feeling safe. You talked about people in their work environment, the employees being safe. Work productivity goes down when people don't feel safe and their mind is occupied in other areas. And we're seeing all of this stuff from around the nation and news and media that we saw some of the atrocities that just happened in Australia, Brown University, and that brings fear into people, and that brings down productivity in a lot of different ways. Some of the bills I'm working on up front, I don't know how much those are going to be exactly an impact to Washington State businesses, but all in all, right now that I'm working with a group to reclassify and make proper what we call e-motos versus e-bicycles. Those who have those electric bikes that have pedals and don't have pedals. If you're driving around your neighborhood, you'll see some bikes and kids running around that you're thinking, I'm not sure they should be running up and down the highways like that. And there's a severe safety risk and issue, which in turn can drive insurance rates up, which also passes on the cost to the consumer and business owners. We have an aviation grant bill that got hung up in the Senate after passing through the House last year. We're going to try another run at that one. It's a good bill that helps support our Rotary programs for our four sheriff's offices in the state of Washington for search and rescue, and that's a big thing here for our area to help spread some of those costs for outside agency assist. I'm working on King County SAR has a one that will be an opt-in bill. It won't be to the taxpayer themselves, that will help fund some volunteer search and rescues from around the state of Washington to give them training and equipment that will help boost coverage and implementation, especially for events that we just saw specifically around all of Washington State, especially in Snohomish County and Skagit and Whatcom probably was hit the hardest. I'm working on multiple left to retirement bills. It'll probably be at several years to push some of these through to get them cleaned up. One of the ones I wanted to talk about that I think that would be a positive impact for our group that we're representing today is I'm working with Dusty Pierpoint, who's retired police chief out of Lacey, to come up with a bill that will be, I'll call it a small agency, small city incentive for police chiefs. Some cities do very well at recruiting very capable chiefs of police to lead their small agencies. Unfortunately, they're not marketable in being competitive with other larger agencies to try to recruit those who are better trained and are equipped to lead agencies in the future. And this is something we'll be working outside the box to try to figure out a way that we can get an incentive in there that maybe override for agencies that are under a certain size that will allow them to be able to collect a retirement and still be a chief of police for those agencies. Then we can pull from a larger pool of qualified candidates from around Washington State. So. And I'll just end with this. One of the things I'm focusing on hard is our JR, so our juvenile offenders around Washington State, and the cost of that to our taxpayers, and trying to cut down recidivism. We know that we have to invest up front to be able to rehabilitate those juvenile offenders, a lot of violent offenders, so they don't, when they come back out, they are productive citizens and don't get caught back up in that, and we reduce those recidivism rates.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Definitely a couple things that you're working on for on your side of things with that. We could probably talk all day on everybody's area of expertise that they work in. So thank you so much. We do have a little bit of extra time or a little bit ahead of schedule. You've kept it brief, and I very much appreciate that, so we can get a little bit farther into the weeds here. We're gonna restart at the beginning. So I want to give you an opportunity to share something that you want to share with business members here in the Wenatchee Valley region. So Senator Gaynor, is there something that you would like to share about the upcoming session?
Yes, and thank you. I think one of the things that I've been most concerned about since I've been in the Senate Budget Cabinet and working on the transportation budget is that we have a significant issue with a crumbling infrastructure throughout the state. And that affects everyone. I mean, if we're trying to get the commerce moving, and whether it's shipping things over to the ports or getting supplies into to our district, it's really critical to have a strong and stable infrastructure. So, I mean, our roads, bridges, ferries, I mean, those are major concerns for the state of Washington. And as I said, it affects everyone. So, I'm hopeful that we can take a good hard look at our transportation budget. And I'm trying to, kind of get some support for even modifying some of the climate commitment dollars, because if we lose bridges, we've talked about carbon footprints, because people have to detour around before they have gone, and you're actually putting more miles on. I mean, I think we can make a nexus with some of those dollars, because right now we're paying, 60 cents roughly per gallon for gas to go toward things that do not go to the infrastructure, 70 cents for diesel, and diesel is what keeps our economy moving. Each one of those trucks, most of the trucks are diesel trucks, and if you're adding that to the cost of delivery, and trying to get your supplies or your product abroad, I mean it's a significant impact. So I think we have to be very serious about what we're spending our money on that's dedicated to in the transportation budget, because there are a number of items within that budget that do not relate to the infrastructure. So that's something I definitely will be working on. And then also from the housing side, I think that we've been trying to get more a better understanding of what will empower the local builders to be able to actually get things built. And you asked in my initial question about the permitting. That is something that we are still working on, trying to streamline some of the permitting and some of the things that are being somewhat redundant in that process. And it does add to the cost of housing. So there are a lot of moving parts, obviously, but those are a couple of things that I think we definitely need to be working on because it affects everyone.
Thank you, Senator Gaynor. I apologize. I got ahead of myself. Representative Dent, I did not mean to skip you. My apologies. You're sitting very patiently. Question for you. As our region, again, North Central and Central Washington rely heavily on agriculture from the House side of things, do you see any legislation to assist our small growers?
Well, I'm working on it. I actually dropped the bill last year. And by the way, thank you for this having this opportunity to speak this morning. And I do want to call out Representative Burnett. There's no doubt we have the right guy on the Public Safety Committee of the House. Okay, he really gets this stuff, and he knows how to get into the weeds and understands it. So I appreciate that. We all benefit from his expertise. But in the agriculture world, agriculture over time that came into being here about 4 years ago has been a real challenge and has put our growers in a real spot, along with our farm workers. They're in the same spot. They aren't making the kind of money they want, and then unfortunately, our agriculture producers can't afford to pay them what they'd like to make. And so we're trying to turn that around and make some changes here to work on that. Started that bill, had dropped the bill last year, did not receive a hearing, and we're going to push on it again this year. Actually, been working with chairs of the labor committees in both the House and the Senate about how we can move this bill. And I understand, as most of us do, that we have to come to some common ground somewhere to find that where it works for everybody. And I believe that we can do that. It's going to take a little while, but I believe we can get there. We did have a meeting yesterday with a few folks that we talked about it with the chair of the Senate committee, and she was the original sponsor of the bill. So I think maybe we have an opportunity to move this, make some changes. Will we get it done this year? Will be a challenge. I don't know that we can, simply because it's a short session. And what's going to be on our plate this year is the budget. Bottom line, I mean, we're in a tight spot, and I don't know that we're going to see a lot of things besides that come forward, especially if it costs any money. If it costs money, it's not going to move. So I think that's the number one thing we could do for our agriculture producers. But the other thing is that I'm working on a bill. I haven't dropped it yet. We're still working on what it looks like. But to take a look at the agriculture regulations that our agriculture producers operate under. So we had a committee that looked at agricultural mental health and suicide in our agricultural sector. Our ag sector has the highest rate of suicide of any sector in the United States. So we took a hard look at that, and we came back to the top two factors, stressors within our study was non-regulations and two, economics. So looking at what we can do on regulations to reduce the regulatory load on our agriculture producers could be a major turning point for them, and give them some relief and let them work and make a living. I don't know any of our agriculture producers that are out there intentionally trying to hurt the environment or misuse pesticides or anything else. They're just we've overregulated the industry, and we need to deregulate some of this and give them a chance to make a living. So that's a conversation that's going to come up this year. I'm looking forward to that. But I just think we in the state of Washington have had a tendency to overregulate actually every industry, including the childcare industry, and we regulate folks right out of business. And we put such a load on them that they just can't make it work. So I think we need to take a look at how we reduce that load, give them an opportunity to move forward and do what they do. Let them do what they do. And so that's where we're at on the ag front. I've talked to many of my colleagues on the ag committee about how we can make this happen, and we'll just see where it comes. But some of this stuff they're heavy lifts, and we may not get it all done in 1 year, but we're going to start the conversation, see if we can't move it forward.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Representative Dent. Senator Warnick, is there something that you want to share with our business community? You're on mute.
I still can't get that right after
There we go.
4 years of being on Zoom. So we will have a huge challenge going into session. We passed the largest tax package in history, and we're still seeing indication that they want to add to those taxes. There's two pieces that I was interested in also. I had the opportunity to attend a meeting in Spokane, kind of like this one, that was sponsored by the Greater Spokane Incorporated Chamber of Commerce and Businesses. The speakers were Speaker Jenkins from the House, the Drew Stokesbury from the Republican side of the House, and then Senator Peterson, who is the leader in the majority party in the Senate, and myself. So we had chances to compare ideas. My caucus, our three top priorities are affordability for not only businesses, but our citizens, public safety, all of the above too, and then look at education, higher ed, and K-12. It was interesting when Senator Peterson was going through his priorities, affordability was last on the list. And I pointed that out, that, that's the difference between our party or our caucus and theirs is the affordability factor. But one big thing that we are going to have to look at, and I'm working with the Department of Revenue on this, is clarification of what the sales tax on services means. What services? Who's going to pay it? Or is our nonprofit going to pay sales tax on the services they have to ask for? The healthcare industry has to pay sales tax on some of the services that they have to contract out of their network, and which healthcare we can't continually add to the cost of healthcare. So sales tax on services is going to be a big one. And then just as kind of a fun comparison, one of our Senate staff took a trip this year with his family. His 9-year-old daughter loves Happy Meals, one type of Happy Meal from McDonald's. And he said they compared the Happy Meal. She always orders the same thing. $6.59 in Washington State and it's the same meal, same toy. And in the South, one of the states they visited in the South was $3.48. So half. And these are small businesses, if you will, under the big corporate umbrella. But when it's $6.59 in Washington State, $3.48 in a southern state, there's something wrong. And this is all the same corporation, all the same meal, same toy, but double the price. So we need to take a look at what's making that happen in Washington State. So we do have a lot to do, and one of the other was to empower business growth. I don't see a lot of growth in our businesses. There's a few, yes, in the Moses Lake area and maybe in the Wenatchee area, but not the small business growth that we really need for jobs. So there you go.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Senator. And it's been mentioned a couple times, but regulation is very high here in the state. And I think in number of regulations, Washington State ranks 8th in the nation. So we're a very regulated state, and there's definitely some efforts that need to be made on that side of things with redundancies in regulation. So thank you for that.
You bet.
Representative Ibarra, is there something that you'd like to share from your side of the world?
Yeah, just again, lots of energy stuff, but also I'm the ranking member on post-secondary education. I echo all the things that Senator Warnock said about higher ed is give back the money to the kids so they can attend any college they want, and the state shouldn't be choosing which colleges they go to. The publics is what they want, but in all reality, those students should get the same financial aid that to go to any school in the state of Washington. So I think that's a big thing for me, as well as at the education folks in general. Again, it's all about energy. I mean, at the moment, President Trump just last night, he basically put a stop. The state of Washington decided not to go forward with coal generation for electricity. in Southwest Washington. So we're going to close the coal plant and make it into a natural gas plant. Last night, President Trump basically said, no, you have to keep that coal plant running. And so there's going to be a big to-do about, does the federal folks tell the state of Washington what kind of plants they can run and not run? So that's going to be rearing its ugly head really soon. Again, from my perspective and being an energy guy working for PUD for 17 years, I could tell you the second cheapest electricity to be made is from coal. And they want to close a coal plant and make it a natural gas plant, which is higher cost for the energy that gets produced. So in my opinion, President Trump is making a wise decision to keep that coal plant open, and it's a lot more reliable and a lot cheaper. So in my opinion, why do we want to close the coal plant when we don't need to, when we need that energy? So that just happened last night. And so there's stories like that happening all the time. But again, we're some of the luckiest regions in the entire nation and probably the entire world having the cheapest electricity around. So I want to keep it that way. I don't want to increase the price of energy, and I'm going to try to stop all the legislation that's going to increase the rates for us. So I want to keep the affordability down for everybody, especially in the electric world.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think affordability is on everyone's minds, whether it's energy, education, and just for business overall. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Representative Burnett, anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think over the last 40, 50 years, we've seen public safety costs for small governments more than double. What I'm hearing right now is most small governments, their budgets are 75+% into public safety, criminal justice. That's a high demand. But do we feel safer? How does that help, our small businesses operate and flourish? And so on that note, I think as I look across our legislators here in the committees and the expertise that they represent, I am just continually looking for areas that help small businesses thrive, taking out the pressure, and from agriculture to the fuel cost to transportation to all of those things, energy cost. How do we make our educational system thrive so our students are coming out and going into a competitive market and actually producing things that make Washington great, that make our small businesses great. So I think just everything in every area that we can look to on any committee, whether we're in a committee working on that and having those discussions and negotiating and having those relationships across the aisle, is looking for those opportunities to pursue those things to anything that will benefit small local government and small businesses and the quality of life that we expect and want to do here in North Central Washington.
Awesome. Thank you. Just in case we lose you again, Senator Short, just in case, we'll jump to you and then to Representative Dent. Senator Short, is there anything you want to share about the upcoming legislative session that businesses should be aware of?
Sure. And I apologize when I had to switch some things around. So I don't know if it's been discussed, but obviously wildfire risk. Did you discuss that yet?
We have not.
Okay, perfect. Working to restore the funding. There was a bill that was passed several years ago. Representative Dent and others, including myself and others, worked really hard to make sure that there were forest health dollars, wildfire fighting dollars, pre-positioning of like firefighting assets, all of the above. That was not fully funded last session. And so I know that there's several efforts. I have a bill to basically bump that funding back up to what it should be. I know there are efforts in the House, bipartisan efforts to do the same thing. But I think one of the big things when we look at, we're natural resources throughout the 7th District, it's just a really huge thing. And the biggest thing that's been coming for a couple of years now is the property casualty insurance issue. And, people are either their insurance policies are being dropped, homeowners insurance, or they're seeing just extreme increases in what they pay for that policy. And so what we really see, been on a task force with the Office of Insurance Commissioner to look at, how do we start tackling this issue? And really what I see overall, just really quickly, is a shared risk. That's a shared risk of both the property owner, the community, the state, and frankly, the insurance companies. They're risk-based. I don't want to see homeowners, shoulder that entire burden. And I know that there will be bills this session that are underway. Number one, to make sure insurance companies are sharing why they make the decisions they do with their policyholders. But it's also how do we get into a thing where we become more resilient, as communities, as property owners, when it comes to wildfire. And I know just with the research that's been being done, there are 3 or 4 top things property owners can do, to mitigate and protect their homes to the best they can. They call it that 0 to 5 foot window, where you are devoid of any kind of foliage or things around your house, your siding, your vents coming into your house, and your eaves. Embers, they say, are the biggest contributor if you're not in the direct line of fire. And so I think there are things that we can do to hopefully bring those policies back and maybe even reduce the cost. It's going to take time, but that is a huge issue I've heard in your communities and really throughout the 7th district. So we will be working on that a lot.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's definitely, I think, in all of our communities, we understand the risk of wildfires and how it affects the daily life when even the smoke is running through. I think we've all seen the increased efforts in hitting fires early on and not letting them last as long, but definitely still something to move forward with. Thank you. And then finally, Representative Dent, anything you'd like to share?
Well, I'd like to thank you for that. I'd like to add a little bit to Senator Short's comments there on wildfire. Wildfire is a serious issue in our state, and it costs us more than we can even imagine. So to go back and to fully fund 1168 has to be a priority for us in the legislature to do that. It not only helps with the forest health, which can reduce our wildfires, but it also helps to fund our initial attack. Excuse me. I always say initial attack is where it's at, and that's why I've always pushed so hard for the aerial assets to keep our aerial assets there up at a high rate. So, because it makes a difference. We can get on that fire in 2 hours instead of 2 days. We can knock it down and keep it under 10 acres, and then we're in better shape. And that's reality. So, this year, 2025, we did not have the aircraft we had in 2024. We did okay as far as fire suppression. We could have done better, I believe, because we did cut our assets. And so we need to fully fund 1168 to do that. And it also has to do with forest health. We need to continue our forest health efforts, because if we reduce the amount of fuel, then we can reduce the severity and the number of wildfires that are out there. You can't have a wildfire if you don't have fuel. So we need to reduce that fuel load. And then the other part of 1168, the third bucket of that, was recovery. So when we do have a fire, we have the money to help the communities and the landscape recover. And that's very important. So 1168 is a priority for me as well. There's another thing that's truly a priority. It goes back to what Senator Gaynor was talking about on transportation, and I absolutely agree with his comments on transportation and how we need to fund this. It's very important that we do this. But last year, Senate Bill 5801 was a transportation revenue package, and in it was a luxury tax on aircraft, which put an extremely high tax on airplanes that are used in corporations for executive transportation and other reasons. Our aerial applicators, our crop dusters, all these kind of aircraft are going to be taxed. Anything that costs more than $500,000, that amount over $500,000 will be levied a 10% tax. And so that's an extraordinary amount of money. And we're looking at our corporate structure in the state of Washington, our corporations who use aircraft in furtherance of their business. They're really uptight about this, and they're pushing back real hard. So priority for me is to remove this tax, to vacate it. We don't need this. We're going to drive folks out of the state. We have driven one corporation in Eastern Washington out of the state with their airplanes. They have 5 corporate aircraft. They have 8,000 employees, and they've moved their aviation department to Idaho, and they don't live very far from Idaho. They could move their entire operation to Idaho. So we could lose that, and we don't need to be doing that. There's a company up in northwestern Washington that manages 91 corporate airplanes, and they're looking at moving those if we don't repeal this part of the bill, and many others. So it's a big deal. We could lose folks, and we start overtaxing. They've had enough. They're not going to pay it. They're going to move, and we have to take a look at that. And we all know that the budget's going to be our number one item this year. And we need to kind of work on that to make sure that we don't lose these folks, because we can raise taxes all we want, but if people move away, we're not going to get the money. So we need to be realistic about what it is. And I want to back up one more time. There's one more thing here that I should have brought up around aviation, around 1168. But a few years ago, we passed a bill called it Aviation Assurances. And what that did was a small rural fire department, say, in Douglas County or Chelan County somewhere, and there's a wildfire. Well, if they called for aviation assets to get on the fire without state mobilization, they were required to pay the bill. And so aviation assets are expensive, and you could actually, a small rural fire department they could gobble up their entire year's budget in one fire. And so they've always been reluctant to request air assets because they didn't have the money, and trying to be responsible with their taxpayers' dollars. So we passed this bill that would allow them to use state assets that are on contract with the state, and the state would pay for them as long as the state approved it. So, but prior to state mobilization. So the advantage of this, what we look back, was state mobilization in our recent history. With the research I did, I only found one state mob fire that was under $1 million. So usually when they go to state mobilization, they're well over $1 million. So what this did is allow our small rural fire departments to reach out, get basically state help, knock the fire down with initial attack, stop the fire from going to state mob. And so basically we save everybody money, including the loss to our natural resources. So, but in order to do this, in order to pass the bill, we ended up putting a sunset in the bill, which sunsets in 2027. And I have a bill this year to remove that sunset because the bill works so well. Everybody loves it. Our fire chiefs love it. DNR loves it. The fire community loves it. So we're going to knock this sunset off this bill so we can have this for our future generations to use. So those are kind of my priorities, along with the overtime that I talked about earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dent. Firstly, thank you to everyone for participating here today. I haven't seen any questions asked in our question and answer, or if you want to raise your hand, participants, to any questions that you might have. Other than that, what is the best way for businesses and community members to be engaged with the legislature? How do you find it best that they talk to you? I'll leave that a little bit open if you would like to jump in there.
Sure. This is Senator Short. Number one, calling our offices. We all have our cell phones, but talking to our staff, they know where to get a hold of us, especially during session. Phone calls are great. They work. Always calling people after hours if that's when, it works to visit, and really just sending us a note, via email, especially during session, really helps. You can also text as well.
And I agree with Senator Short on calling and the emails. However, don't make those emails a copy of, say, a Chamber of Commerce or any other group. Don't make them copied, make them personal. A lot of times the message will be the same, but if I see one that's copied from a service that sells the service that sells the ability to get to your legislature, I don't always read those. Or you might get a stock response, that if they're all the same. So, but emails, phone calls, I like good old-fashioned letters too. So
Senator Gaynor.
Yeah, I just want to encourage everyone to be engaged, and it's so much easier to have that discussion up front when bills are being considered than to try and come after the fact and undo what's been done. And I know that, people in business, whether it's, retail or farming or construction or whatever, you're busy running your business. I mean, that's your biggest concern day by day is just to, keep the bills paid, keep your employees, equipped and all. But somehow we have to have the voices of people that are being impacted, because what we've seen time and time again is legislation happening without engaging the people who are going to be impacted by that legislation. So as much as possible, I just really encourage you to try and stay abreast of the bills that are being proposed and being considered. Obviously, if you can get in when there's still a hearing on a bill prior to it hitting the floor, because once it hits the floor, it's probably, too late because they're planning on passing it. So we can't, understate at all the significance of the engagement of the business community.
And Rep. Dent.
Can I echo my colleagues there? But those farm letters, we glossed over them. It's just the same thing over and over. So you get 1,000 of them, you're not going to read them. But a personal letter, whether it's an email or a letter, will get our attention. Keep it short, to the point. We can get it. We like concise. Okay, if you write us a book, it's not going to get read either. So keep it short. But as Senator Gaynor said, engage in the process. If you belong to a business association, pay attention. They probably are watching the legislation and putting out updates. So pay attention. If it looks like we're going to have a hearing on a bill that you're pro or con on, try to come and testify. And we have it where you can testify virtually now, and that's really makes it a lot easier for folks in Eastern Washington. But testify, it makes a difference. If you can come in person, that's even better. But I understand the challenges to do that. But that makes a difference. And if you watch a hearing sometime, when you see people come from home, they come to a hearing to testify, we pay attention. We really do. And we listen to them because they've made an effort to be there, and it's important. And we know that this country and this state belongs to you. So those are things that can really make a difference in what happens. And having an opportunity to come to Olympia, if you have a business organization that has a day on the Hill, try to engage in that, try to be involved in that too, and meet the legislators and let them know the challenges of what's going on and how it affects them. Because like I say, as many times we have many legislators that don't necessarily have an understanding of how a bill will affect people. And so we need to hear from the folks, the stakeholders, so they know that. But as Senator Gaynor said, if it's going to get to the floor, if it's headed to the floor, it's probably too late. I think I've only seen 2 bills in 11 years that didn't pass off the floor of the House. It came to the floor. So usually if they come to the floor, the votes have been counted and they're going to pass. So try to get there when they're in the committee process. And that's when you want to be engaged with your legislators.
Awesome. Thank you so much to each of you for participating in today's legislative preview. For all of our attendees, like you just heard, it is very important that you are active and engaged in this whole process. It's not just afterwards when things have already passed that they hear from you, but it's during the session and when things are in committee and receiving hearings. That is probably the most important time to participate. Thank you again for everyone joining us, attendees and legislators. We look forward to our legislative wrap-up happening in probably the month of April, and we look forward to working with you during session. Again, have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Teddy, and everybody.
Thank you.